Beyond the Wild.
Fellas, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Wild. Guess what week it is? And I know it's going to be too late for this announcement it is Photo X week. So we are headed to Salt Lake City, going to hit Picture Line. As this comes out, we will have hit Picture Line for Photo X, talk to and seeing a lot of vendors, and then getting with the Picture Line staff. And Jason and I are presenting on Friday, and then on a panel discussion on Saturday. So can't wait to share a little bit about that experience. But it's a great event, and if you can't make it or didn't make it in 25, make sure you plan for it in 26. As Jason says, it's only 4 hours from Yellowstone, and I hear from our good friends Eric and Debbie Brewer that Yellowstone right now is a hotbed of activity with 2 wolf packs in the Lamar Valley and being very active hunting.
Yeah. Get in the car and go.
You and me both, Mark.
Heading to the airport.
How are you guys doing?
Joking.
Yeah.
Fantastic. It's always nice to take a break from everything else that's happening and reconnect with you fine gentlemen, and been enjoying the episodes lately and the guests we've had, and the Mother's Day episode that we just had, and all of the importance of that, as far as engaging our children in general, like you are doing, Jason, with your other project. The weekend, is it full?
It's not full yet. I appreciate you bringing that up, Mark. It is. We have, I think, 5 or 6 seats available still. But yeah, I'm super excited to get going on that and to see how it goes this first year. Just a side note, if somebody's listening to this, it might be a little late. I'm trying to think of the timing, but regardless, we're going to talk about this at PhotoX as well. If you are worried about coming because you don't have gear, Canon has been nice enough to give us loaners for the entire camp. So if you are worried about it because you don't have gear, don't let that stop you from signing up. We have available gear from Canon, and all of us that are participating in the camp as leaders, teachers, whatever you want to call it, have gear that we're bringing with us too, just in case. So please don't let that be something that deters you from coming out and having a good experience. But I'm excited. Can't wait.
Awesome. Thank our sponsor, Canon USA, for coming forward with that and making it possible for kids that maybe have never taken a picture before.
Yeah.
Giving them the opportunity.
And we can't not think
good.
Picture Line too. Sorry, Ron, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
They were a huge part of making that happen too. So again, a big thanks to Picture Line, and everybody that's come is going to get a cool swag bag and lots of cool little stuff to be a participant in the camp. They'll be getting a shirt from Beyond the Wild. They'll be getting a bunch of stuff that'll make it way more valuable than the cost of the camp, which is pretty low. I think it's only $25 to sign up. So
excellent.
That Picture Line, or that Beyond the Wild shirt. Did I mess up?
No, it's good. No, I'm
laughing?
Yeah, it's signed by Jason.
Right, I'm just going to say, Beyond the Wild shirt's going to be worth something someday.
Hundreds of dollars.
It's going to be worth something someday.
But not today.
No, not today. Matter of fact, it's funny. I want to just mention that it's this whole PhotoX thing. Ron and I are speaking, and we were hoping to be able to have Mark come out this year as well, but maybe next year we can get him to come and be a participant in that too. I think it'd be really fun to have all of us there and to, participate. But there's a little bit of imposter syndrome going on. I mean, the panel of the folks that we're going to be sitting with and being part of this panel discussion with these guys, and being a presenter is I'm having a little bit of imposter syndrome, feeling like I'm not sure I'm the right guy that people want to be hearing from. I don't know, just something that's been going through my head lately, but I'm excited to be there. I'm excited to share the little bit I do know and to participate in the rest of the experience and to listen to the other speakers for sure. it's going to be
You
a
know
really,
what?
but
As much as I respect everybody else on that panel and look forward to hearing all of them speak,
yeah.
none of them, to my knowledge, have a filter named after them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, right, Mark?
You
Yes.
guys crack me
There's
up.
no question. You are both so experienced in photography, in animal behavior, in biology, in just your podcasting years. You both should have a very good seat there.
Well,
I
I
would
appreciate
go.
that.
I would like to go next year.
Mm,
That would be fun, obviously.
yeah.
But everybody will have a great time, and you're so friendly about everything and the information. You get on a podcast every week and talk about it. So
Oh,
yeah,
the presentation part isn't the problem at all. You know what I mean. It's just the company that we're going to be presenting with, if you will, is they're very experienced and very talented
Some
videographers,
great people.
photographers, and absolutely. So
sure.
Some
Yeah,
great people, but I still would rather have the shadow elk than
you guys are too nice.
the Loftus filter.
I
you're
wasn't
both
saying that to ask for accolades. I promise.
you're getting them, man.
It's okay.
You
We picked
guys
it
are.
up. We picked it up.
Yeah, yeah. Brother in need, a person in need. It's like, well, yeah, you're both
Yeah.
phenomenal photographers, and you know the gear so well, right? There's so many elements to this, so you don't have to feel that way, and enjoy it.
Oh,
And
I'm
when just
excited.
on the children's camp,
Yeah.
was it 20 kids, and what week is that happening? Just to for people that are listening, and again, this may air too late for this year, but it'll likely run again next year. Can they find information on the Picture Line website?
Yep. If you go to the picture line page, I think it's under local events tab, or go to their link tree. I think it's there too. But you can find all the information, and it's every Saturday in June. It's going to be from 9 a.m. to around 1 p.m. The plan is to do a little bit of classroom session, learn about a portion of what we want to cover, which is essentially composition and then shooting in manual. It's all 4 weeks in June. So from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., we start out at the Rush Funplex there on Antelope Drive for the locals. And then we go out to Antelope Island after we do the classroom session and try to put those techniques that we learned in class to work and to practice. There'll usually be a little bit of homework, and then we'll do some photo review and stuff on the next week, and then get into the next topic, and then do the same thing. Go out and do some more in the field stuff on Antelope Island. So I'm really excited about the format. I think it's coming together really nicely, and the Utah Wildlife Federation and Picture Line have both been huge parts of making this possible. So excited about the fact that we've got 15, I think, signed up and only 5 slots left, and hoping that everybody that comes has a great experience. So
Awesome. You
Can I?
mentioned something about taking your kids out. You know what's even more fun than that?
What's that?
Taking your kids out.
Yeah, I'm getting excited for that. I know you're there too, Grandpa. But
Went out last night
yeah.
and took Kylo out for his first swift fox. I've got a den that's about 20 feet from the road.
Oh, nice.
And so we went out, rolled the window down, and of course he's impatient because he wants to go find a T-Rex and doesn't really have time for these fox. And so, just turned 3, so he's got his priorities.
Okay.
And I put the binoculars up, and I kind of they're 12 power binoculars, so it's hard to know what he's seeing. And I just rested him on the side of the car, and he was looking through them. And I said, "Do you see the fox?" He goes, "Yeah, I see it. I see it, Poppy." And I said, "Okay, what's he doing?" "He's peeing. That fox is peeing." I said, "Kylo, that fox is sleeping." So he obviously was not seeing it. And it was hard because it was laying flat in the grass, And so I pulled up about 10 feet is all. And all of a sudden he's like, "Whoa." I said, "Do you see the fox?" He says, "Yeah, it looks like a kitty cat." I said, "That's exactly what it looks like. It looks like a kitty cat." He says his ears are poking up. He's sleeping. His ears are poking up. And so then I knew he caught it. But it was amazing the change between the boredom of wanting to go find a T-Rex and maybe a Triceratops, and then all of a sudden, boom! Now we're focused on what's right in front of us or what's right beside us. And then about 3 miles, 3 or 4 miles at the most from the fox den is a burrowing owl burrow, and so we just drove up around the corner and pulled up, and again, he said he could see it. I knew he couldn't because it was in the brush. And so we just got out, and normally I don't like to disturb wildlife, but I really wanted him to see that it was there. So I just stepped out, popped up, and I was holding him, and the bird flew about 15 feet back to the burrow out of the brush, and he got to see it fly, and then he could see the owl. And so it was, we had a good evening, and then I think he had a good sleep after. So
That's fun.
that's pretty awesome. And so I look forward to hearing how you guys do with that training, with that class. That'll be, watch these kids have experiences that they've never had. Some of them maybe that they would never have outside of what you guys are generous enough to be doing. And I can't wait to hear about those experiences and get some comments, some feedback from the kids. You need to make sure you film that, their best moment from the week kind of thing. And
I like that.
And we can put that together on a reel.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think we should do that. We could make it part of the follow-up episode or something too.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good idea. You'll have to remind me as we get closer on that.
I'm full of good ideas for others.
That's too fun. Yeah, I'm super excited. I honestly cannot wait. We've been talking about this for a good year now, since the last Photo X, and finding a way to give back a little bit, and this all coming together this way has been rewarding so far, and I'm super pumped. And a ton of work done by the others that are part of this too. Not me by any means, but Shauna, Jimmy and Lydia have all been awesome and a huge part of all this too. By no means am I trying to take credit. I'm fortunate to be a part of it. So
yeah, that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So can I talk a little bit about some things that we chatted about last time? Can I take just a sec?
I guess.
Yeah. So in the last time we talked, at one point, I don't know, some of these episodes mixed together a little bit, and I'm not sure exactly when we talked about it, but I did get a new drone, and I did go fly my drone. That drone is a Mavic 3 Pro. It is of the size requirement that is required to be licensed to fly. So I just wanted to get on here and chat a little bit about kind of the lack of responsibility I had. These guys are pulling faces at me, so I'm having a hard time keeping a straight face myself.
No, it's you're frozen, so I'm taking pictures of your face. It's great.
Oh, gotcha. I was irresponsible, quite honestly, and I'm just bearing my soul a little bit here. So please don't do what I did. Make sure you understand the regulations and stuff if you're going to go get a drone. I think that's a big reason, and most people probably know this. I was ignorant to it, but I should have found out. There's no excuse for it. But the requirements are, if it's less than 0.55, I can't remember if it's kilograms or pounds, whatever, but there's a weight requirement, and the micro or the mini pros, I think, fit just underneath that weight requirement. So for the minis, you are not required to be licensed, but the larger drones that weigh more than that requirement you are required to be licensed to fly them, whether it's for commercial reasons or not. So I did go fly, and I shouldn't have. So I've grounded myself. I own this drone now, and I'm doing the responsible thing and getting licensed and going through that process. So just don't do the same thing, right? I just wanted to make sure that we chatted about that really quick. That was something I should have known before I bought the drone and or went out and flew it. On a positive note, Kelly Elmer was with me, and he is licensed. I don't know if that changes much, other than that I did know I was in an area where I knew I could fly if I had been licensed, and I was in an area that I wasn't, in the middle of nowhere, where we were not interfering with any other kind of issues from airspace requirements and things like that. So, but regardless, I was not licensed. So hopefully, I don't have a FAA officer show up at my doorstep to write me a ticket or something. But if they do, I deserve it, and I did go out and fly without one. So that will not happen again. I am taking the course, and I will be licensed the next time I fly. But yeah.
Well, appreciate your confession, and I don't feel obligated to turn you in any longer.
Yeah, well, yeah, no need to. I just
I'm just kidding.
call the hotline myself.
All good,
Hey,
buddy.
yeah. No, we make mistakes for sure. I just got excited, I think, and didn't, go through the right steps to ensure I was legally where I needed to be. So, but on a brighter note, you know what I did on Saturday night? I went out and I didn't go dancing, but I did take Hunter out, and we took his car. He has a brand new WRX that he's super proud of, and we went to the industrial park and took a bunch of photos of him and his car,
Oh, nice.
just his car, him with his car. Had a bunch of fun. Did some motion blur photos and just a bunch of different types of photos, and using the road and the buildings and the industrial park there, and it was a lot of fun. Just a reminder to everybody to stretch yourself a little bit and go, be creative once in a while with your stuff other than just the wildlife. There's lots of opportunities to put your skills to work outside of just the wildlife stuff, and I think it's all good and helps us become better photographers, just across the board. But a lot of the same things we do in those other genres of photography help us out in all aspects of what we do, I think. So it was fun. It stretching my mind a little bit on some of the composition and that, and trying to make some of the photos work and look good, and took quite a few that quite honestly didn't work and looked like garbage, and then found a few winners, So every time you do that, I think you get a better eye for composition in that. So it was fun. It was a good time. What'd you fellas do?
Worked.
That's right. I knew that answer. Sorry.
Worked and recovered. Continued to recover. Things are much, much better than they've been the last few weeks.
Good. Yeah, I know you've been sick. You sound better.
So
for sure. Yeah.
Don't look any better, but I do sound better. Do feel better.
Nothing we can do about that for Photo X. Sorry.
You're right. You know what is good news though also is that Mark had a listener question.
Yeah. Nice transition.
It's and it just dawned on me 30 seconds ago, since we decided to do this just tonight. I want to thank who sent it, and I'm digging right now, like a groundhog in the middle of the field. Where's the
put him on the spot, boys and girls?
I'll come up with it before the end of the show.
Nice.
But this is fun because it sparked a new idea for the podcast.
Yeah, and I think there's species that we all enjoy, but this is one that we kind of all have in common. We don't all necessarily. Yeah, we don't all necessarily all like the same things all the time, and we have different focuses maybe, but this one we all focus on, and that sound.
I don't know. What is it?
That one right there is besides a meadowlark in the spring, that is the greatest sound in nature.
Oh, I'd fight you over that one.
So
it just means it's getting warmer.
Fair. Yeah, that sound is unmistakable, no doubt.
Been a favorite and I know a huge part of our listening audience is dialed right in for elk and wapiti, and the listeners send in a DM, and we always appreciate those from any of you. Questions, pro tip ideas, anything about the show, constructive criticism, you name it. Keep in touch. But it was a great idea about doing an episode on our pro tips about filming elk and the elk rut. So it's like, Yeah, that makes sense. And it's the time of year too, right? Like everybody's starting, it's only springtime, but our heads often start to spring forward a bit and we start thinking about what's coming up. And we know from, for so many people, and all three of us included, the elk rut is such an exceptionally fun experience to take in photography, videography, and just being there, wherever it might be.
Yeah. It's the only species I dedicate a full week to every year, put it that way. For me. So
Yeah, and it's hard. It's hard to explain it to people that have never experienced it. Just what the elk rut is, because it's not just the bugles. It's not just the fights. It's not just the bulls' behavior chasing the cows. It's the crisp air in the morning. It's the stillness. It's the quietness, and it's the quietness that gets just completely exploded once one of those big old buggers rips a bugle and makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up.
yeah,
And
especially when you can sneak away, which does happen from time to time, and have a personal experience.
mm-hmm.
There's just nothing better. It's super hard to explain, like you said. You just can't explain it. But you're right, Ron. It's all of those components all together that just make it so unique and so amazing. But
And the fall color. But to be fair, elk are a favorite year round.
absolutely, I don't pass up many opportunities to photograph them any time of year. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from the
And why
calves
would that be? Why would we not want to pass up those opportunities, Ron?
to photograph wapiti.
To photograph the mighty Wapiti throughout the entire year. Why would we not want to miss those opportunities
For
as wildlife photographers?
storytelling. You got to tell the whole life story. You can't just. I mean, that is what kids' books are made out of.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we just had the Mother's Day, right?
Yeah.
And I most of us threw up a post that was related somehow to mothers in some way, and I posted up a mother bison with a brand new baby bison from a couple years back, and in the past I've posted a mother elk with a baby elk from in the past, and I think just it goes to show that we've talked about it a million times, but having a full portfolio, not just elk rut photos, but what do the elk look like? I've taken photos of raggedy looking elk losing their winter hides with just nubs starting to grow and through the entire velvet growing process, and as their hides start to get their summer coats, and then as they transition into their winter coats. And yeah, we've talked about it all a ton. We've kind of beaten that one up a little bit, but it is part of the entire life cycle of elk, and trying to document the whole process, every aspect, every season is important. With any animal that you're photographing, I think. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a pro tip from Mark years ago.
Years, decades,
Years.
even.
So if
Mark's
you
still
guys ever,
looking.
should we focus on the rut? I mean, I get what you're saying. I mean, there's opportunities year round, and the life cycle is important year round. But just to kick it off with tips, or if you, we could start with tips, or we could also start with one of your favorite stories before tips, if you prefer, to kind of create that atmosphere, the mood of being there on a magical day in the elk rut.
Mm.
They're gone. The guys are just gone now. They're glazed
Yeah,
over, and they're there.
Sorry.
daydreaming.
No, it's good. It's good.
I can honestly say that some of my best elk rut experiences have been when I did not have a camera in my hand.
Mm.
And there's those times where you think you're alone. You know that there's life out there, but there's those days when you think you're alone, and all of a sudden things just explode. And I can't stress enough what that does to you. I mean, there is walking along through the forest and having a rough grouse explode under your feet, that gets your heart going, right? But the bugle of a bull elk and the activity that ensues after that, it's a completely different kind of way to start your heart, and it just makes you feel alive. I think is the best descriptor, and some of the best times I've had have been, up in the mountains when I was working for the Game and Fish, up in the mountains all by yourself, and all of a sudden, boom, everything just happens right in front of you. And it's hard to put into words the crisp air and the condensation of the hot breath after those bulls have been running around in the pre-dawn chasing cows and warming their lungs up, and all of a sudden that bugle rips and cold air meets the warm air, and there's just that explosion of fog. Those are the best times. And I don't think I have a single picture that's happened in front of me.
Really?
Not a good one. I mean, I think back to a few years ago, your that morning that you and Kelly had,
Mm-hmm.
where all the conditions were just perfect. You were shooting
Right.
everything backlit, and it was just one after the other, after the other, after the other, and not just a stream of breath, but a stream of breath that was as long as the elk itself,
Yeah.
that you guys captured, and nothing like that. I mean, obviously I've seen it, but
Yeah.
We haven't shot elk, photographed elk together, have we?
no, and we need to remedy that.
Yeah, because that's something that is a focus each year, and
Mm-hmm.
had some excellent opportunities last fall for breath and those mountain scenes with breath. Just actually embarrassingly edited them like a week ago. Finally got them finished. I had done a few, but really had, I like to do a couple hundred after of a species after a trip, and finally finished that. But just to quickly on a story, so I do, and this wasn't part of the plan to do this episode on elk, because it's honestly tell stories all night long of amazing experiences in elk country. But I do 2 weeks of tours for elk, and I take two guests with me, just two, because it's elk, and I like to get back in the timber and want to have a low profile and a great experience for a couple of people. And last year, and to pick up on, sorry, where Ron was going with just being there, in addition to the photography. I mean, the photography is a high when all the elements come together: the adrenaline, the excitement, the light, the animal behavior. But when Mike Fahey was with me for a week, and we were finishing up our last morning, and it was a special morning in hindsight for me because of the bull that we found. But we heard the bugle, and we went back in, and you want to know what you're doing if you're going back into elk country. Go with somebody who's done it, and I'm not just saying that in this case because of what I do, but find a friend or a colleague or somebody that you can trust to take you in, because they are big animals and they have behaviors and they move around a lot. It's an active time of year, so you have to have experience and common sense about it. So we found this magnificent bull and a harem, and when we got to him, they had just all bedded down. It was a time of mid-morning, and the early activity, it was all past, and they were going to rest, and cows chew their cud, and the bull bed down by the harem in these evergreens. So we didn't collect many images. In fact, I think I took one, and the bull laid down, and then we sat there, 75, 80 yards away on a log in the forest, and just stayed with them at a distance. They were ignoring us and just being there. And afterwards, it meant a lot to me that Mike mentioned how moving it was just to be in their space, not to be focused on the camera and collecting images, and just feeling their presence in the wilderness and being there with them. And I feel that all the time. He hit the nail on the head, and that it's really wonderful and grounding, and just to be in their company and to be there when they were calm. And the bull slept, he put his rack down on the ground and on his back, and just to have that trust at that distance is a special place to be. So I think that's a marvelous thing with any species, if people have that opportunity in nature. And the story about the bull, quickly, I'm glad I have the one picture. He'd actually broken off the top half of one of his antlers, almost top third, which it was a big knuckle part that broke off. Very impressive that happened in a fight. But I recognized by comparing him, and it's kind of something I do, I'm kind of a nut for ungulates, obviously, and can recognize individuals. There's been many favorite bulls over the years in the various places I photograph. And we've talked about this, the changing of the guard. You never know when things happen. And my all-time favorite animal, JG will put something up on the YouTube right now to show him, died at probably probably 5 years ago, pre-COVID, as much as I hate bringing that subject up. But that ages it. So about 4 or 5 years ago, and he'd been a herd bull for probably 6 years, 7 years, probably 6. But this one is one of his offspring. We talked, he was exceptional. And he always had a harem, very few challengers. And we were thinking, well, his superior antler genetics would be passed on. And I haven't seen a bull until now that had the same kind of texture and webbing and antler growth. So it was very exciting just to get one image that I liked. He's hidden in the trees. It's not even clear or majestic bugle, but to know he's out there, and to find him in the future. But this, as Ron said, the storytelling is part of it, but being there. But again, before we get into the tips, I just told a story. So you guys, what would be a favorite experience and that would just has stuck with you and speaks to you in the way of what an incredible elk photography morning or evening was for you?
This was actually just this was the year COVID hit. So in 2020, right? Is that right? 2020. I had gotten COVID in Alaska that year. And so for me, it's kind of funny how these things mean something to us and how they come about meaning something to us. I had gotten COVID pretty severely and came back from Alaska and had fatigue pretty significantly. And I fought through the fatigue for a couple months. By the time I got back from Alaska and was working through my fatigue, it was just about time to go do some elk rut. I went early, probably, I think it was actually even in the end of August, just trying to think that I could maybe get some photographs of some elk early because I had some time. And I wanted to get out and stretch my legs and my lungs and see how I was doing with the fatigue. So I went out to photograph some elk, and I actually found the bull I was looking for and found him way back off the trail, way away from the meadows and the roads and everything, and went into the trees and hiked in there with him. And he had about 25 cows with him and ended up having like an incredible day with just that bull and that group of cows and not another soul around. I had him to myself for the entire day. I ended up napping with the elk. I mean, as dumb as that sounds, when they laid down, I laid down. When the bull got up, I would pay attention. And quite a few times I just put the camera down and just enjoyed the opportunity to be present with the elk and to, like Mark alluded to, be accepted, if you will. I mean, the bull slept, the cows slept. There was no fear from them with me being there. They were completely comfortable with me around. Matter of fact, multiple times the cows would, get a little bit closer than I was comfortable for. So I would, move back and give them their space. But to have that kind of experience after COVID, kind of trying to stretch my legs and get back into the saddle, if you will, making sure that I could get out and hike and do what I wanted to do as far as making these photographs happen. It was just special to me. Had a great morning. It was, still fall enough and a higher elevation that the crisp air, it never got above like 65, I think, if I remember. Very comfortable all day, and just to have that experience. And I think it was probably about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, they decided to kind of work their way towards the meadow. And actually, I'd had such a great experience with them. I just kind of let them go do their thing, and I wandered back over to my vehicle and, just soaked it in. So, yeah, I don't know why that one sticks out to me, other than maybe it just has to do with getting back into the swing of things and having that one-on-one personal experience. And it has nothing to do with a specific bull or anything like that. It could have been any bull, quite honestly. But to just have that one-on-one experience and to witness all the aspects of the bugling and the rutting and satellite bulls coming in and bull chasing them off. I mean, all the rut activity was happening. And to just be there and to be a part of it and soak it in and come away with some cool photos to boot, just it was special. And it's hard to explain. It really is hard to explain to people. It sounds like, people have those experiences quite often, probably, that do this stuff. But I don't know. For whatever reason, that one just means a lot to me.
I guess mine was probably what led to this. I had, we did that TV show with Doug, and then Mike Morrow had also done a show with Doug, and I met Mike just in the park, and ended up visiting, and I had my son with me, and he had a bull that he had typically had all to himself. Same thing for weeks. This bull just was kind of reclusive, and nobody else was walking into where he was at, and so we walked in with him the following morning, and my son got to photograph this bull. The light wasn't great. We didn't get anything extraordinary. Got some good shots, and he was a very impressive animal. But that was probably the best experience I had, and probably because I got to share it with my son. And so he was kind enough to take us in there and do that, and let my son have that experience. And I think that probably more than anything solidified that morning for me. And then, a close second would be the first time I laid eyes on and was in the presence of that bull down in Rocky Mountain National Park. He had about 20 different names, but I have never seen a more impressive animal. And he just ran things. Didn't matter where he was. Didn't matter who was around, what was around. He just kind of ran things. And he was kind of notorious for kicking the rut off every year a little bit early. So you couldn't really, typically you try to wait till around mid-September. But if you were there the end of August, beginning of September, in fact, one evening he had been with one cow and calf, and went into the timber, and he was with her for probably a couple days, and everybody had said, that's it. He's just with the one cow. And he went into the timber that day, and I have a picture of the string of cows coming out of the trees that night, and he had 99 cows that evening. By the time he came out of the timber that evening, he had every cow in the basin and had them all gathered up and out in the meadow, and it was just game on after that. And to be able to see that and be there for what is the kickoff, for the elk rut, I think that was a pretty good experience.
I remember that. I remember that very vividly. It was insane to see him with that many cows.
It was nutty. Yeah. It was nutty.
I mean, didn't last long. I mean, bulls were coming in and peeling off 20 here and 10 there and whatever. But yeah,
you can't keep track of that many ladies.
Yeah, right. That's a lot to ask.
But no, that was pretty amazing.
That's cool, Ron.
I have never seen 99 cows in a harem.
It was unreal.
Neither have I until then.
That yeah, it was. They just kept coming out of the trees, and then you knew right where he went in, and you could tell where he had bedded down because he kept bugling from bed, all day, off and on. And the cows started coming out, and there was 5, 10 more, 5, 10 more, and then 20 would run out, just all strung out like in a cattle drive, just a big line. And then here he came, right out of the mountain, and there was just cows everywhere.
That's funny, Ron.
But
He was. I mean, that he had a lot of nicknames. We can call, Bruno, Super Bowl, Incredible, uh, Big Kahuna. I
Incredible.
mean,
That's funny.
oh, I know. They all, and they're all pretty fitting in their own little way. But
Mm.
the you're not wrong. I don't think I've ever seen another bull that I've seen personally that year after year, like 3 years in a row when he was kind of the king. He generally had a group of 30 to 50 cows pretty consistently, and I don't think there's very many other bulls I've seen that were able to, manage that many cows, if you will, and
mhm.
and to keep them for the majority of the time. And it was just fun to watch an animal like that, where there's times when he would just walk away and give up the cows because he knew they weren't hot and it wasn't worth the energy in the fight. And then
And he was
two
going to
days
get them
later,
back.
and
Yeah.
yeah, right, and he'd disappear for a day or two, and then 2 days later he'd come back and take them when it was time to, when it was time for some rutting to happen. And
Mhm.
I was just, yeah, you could go on and on, and I'm sure it'd be crazy to listen to other photographers talk about that bull too and the experiences they had too, because he really was an incredible elk, and the things that he did in that, he just ran the show. And now you just don't see that. You see lots of bulls in that area with 15 to 20 cows, and they're
Mhm.
spread all over. And there's no like one big group of cows anymore that I can think of. And maybe there are from time to time, but not like through the entire rut like he used to do. But pretty crazy, special experience to be able to see a bull like that year after year, and to, like you alluded to, Mark, to be able to go back and see him and see how he's changed and see the tactics he uses, and
Mhm.
they definitely have personality. There's no question about it.
Yeah, so hareming is all part of the biology, right? Where it why they get so big like that is there's an animal that's just genetically superior, and on planet Earth, I mean, reproduction is based on survival of the fittest, and an animal's fitness is based on genetics, nutrition, and good luck throughout life. Really,
Mhm.
living in a place with great nutrition, and not succumbing to other causes of mortality. And hareming with elk, the animals that call like elk, it's a magnificent bugle. The cows hear that and are drawn to the superior males. They most likely recognize it, right? And there's different. You can hear the difference of a mature bull versus an adolescent bull, big time in the bugle. So they're drawn to that to check out the male, and if the male is to their liking, the best that they can find with all the right attributes, they stay and they form a harem. And then the females will come into heat for a short period of time, a day or two, and then if there's that many females, they'll have to have their own dominance hierarchy. The strongest, fittest ones have the first opportunity, if they're in heat with same day as another cow, to breed with the male of choice. And it's very interesting to watch all those dynamics. That's where you see one of the reasons you'll see cows sometimes boxing, standing up on their hind
Mhm.
hooves and flailing each other with their front hooves to decide who's the most dominant, and gets the choice of what to do, whether it's a food source or in this case breeding. The bulls can't hold a harem forever, even the strongest ones. And this happens with moose a lot too. Any animal, any species at harem, so they can defend the harem for a few days. And one of the reasons they bugle when they're bedded is just to continually remind other potential rival males that they're there and
Mhm.
they're ready to fight. It's their harem, and it's like a warning call to them and an attractant to the females. But they will inevitably get bounced because the energy they expend is uh, monstrous, right? A tremendous amount of energy to reproduce, to run, to keep the cows together to the degree they do, to chase off other males. And those that have seen elk country, that can be nonstop at times. So be two males on this side, they run off one, another male comes in from another direction, they have to go over there. So they get tired, and even though they're the strongest individual, they will get thrown off in a fight and then leave. And as Jason said, um, they'll rest for a couple of days. The smart bulls, I've seen big mature bulls that, I've been doing this for years. They leave. They don't try to reclaim it right away. They leave for a couple of days or a few days and get their strength back, rest up. If they have a minor muscle pull or injury, they nurse that a bit, and then they come back in and regain the harem. And that fluctuation goes on throughout the rut, and is another way that elk maintain, a good genetic diversity, because those females are often, throughout the harem will be bred by different mature bulls, often is the case during a rut, or sometimes, it can change that afternoon while she's still in heat and be a different male too. So it's incredibly dynamic to watch, to photograph, the vocalizations, the cow calls, the gentleness that these huge, 1,000-pound bulls have around calves, right? The calf can come up and walk by, or the bull bedded, or, it's very, clearly focused attention on rival males that way. I mean, things do happen. I know there's oddities. Never seen any aggression with a calf myself, though, all these years. And it's, so when photographing, the tips, there's so many that we can get into, or things to look for too. I think I told enough of a story with that first one. Maybe I'll finish with a story instead. Go to the tips.
Yeah,
I have a story in mind, but I'm thinking, for me, the elk rut is, it's predictable. Their behaviors, if it's warm, they're not as active. Cooler days are more exciting as a photographer, because they'll hold activity longer in the morning and start earlier in the evening. But I like to start well before daylight, because in elk country, there's often hilltops that, if one's lucky, we can start with silhouettes to begin the day. I was hiking into a back field. I grabbed a coffee, and two photographers I knew, good friends of mine, were there, and I was leaving. They're like, "Aren't you going to talk for a minute?" I'm like, "No." Oh no, that's not what it was. I have too many stories in my head. They were walking in a direction I was heading, and I walked past them, and they said, "What's your hurry?" And I was like, "Silhouettes, boys," and it worked that morning. So I just walked briskly. I never, without good cause, there'll be run in the wild. So I'm walking briskly and walked past them, and then I got down to this meadow, and they decided to keep up with me just behind. And right then, a bull crested on a ridge with red pre-dawn sunrise, and it was, the three of us had a fantastic opportunity. Underexpose as silhouettes. The wonderful thing about mirrorless cameras, or even DSLRs, you can take your pictures and check them quickly. But with the mirrorless, as you rotate your exposure down, you can see the intensity of the color of the sky change, and the details come in. And of course, don't stress big time. You can also recover in post. This now, to a degree too, that even like dodge and burn tools can pull details out of mountains and sky in situations like this. But it's so much fun. And then there's things like, the profile of the antlers, trying to pay attention. It's most exciting just to start getting the images, but get the right head turn where you see more of the rack. Not just, my preference is not perfectly lined up where the antlers look like one even, right? If the head turns, you can get the depth of the antlers and see all the tines. And if it bugles, even better. So silhouettes are something that on a clear day, and a frosty clear day, it's great to start exceptionally early when you can access elk like that. And then it's all rut from then on, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
hope for sub I can't
Sub-zero
think of it,
temps, yeah.
sub-zero in Canada with Celsius, but freezing temperatures so that we have breath and steam, and that activity is it just encompasses the energy of elk when you get those with that action, with the clouds of breath and steam coming off their backs. But
Mm-hmm.
so that would be my first tip. Is one of them is, on a watch for clear days, cheer for them, and be out early if you can to try to get silhouettes. They've never been a big seller. They do sell, not but they complete a story. And if you have a chance to ever put a collection of images together or do presentations at your camera club and stuff like that, it's such a dynamically different image that people are
Mm-hmm.
moved by.
Yeah, I think for me the first tip would be just to watch. There's a lot of little subtleties in behavior, and there's bulls that will hiss. There's bulls that will what you call glunk, and there's a lot of little subtle noises that you can hear, and subtle behaviors, but it's all in the way that they manage and vocalize and keep track of the cows. And so learning those behaviors, you just have to see them to understand exactly what they are. But there's also as you alluded to, Mark, the subtleties with the cows themselves and the interactions that they'll have, not only cow to cow, but then cows and calves as well. And while the bulls don't target the calves, sometimes they do get in the way, and so there can be some good interactions there too. And when a cow, or excuse me, when a calf kind of explodes due to the activity of the bull, a lot of times those movements are super dynamic, and you can get some, almost completely laid out sideways movements as they jump out of the way, and just being ready to capture those. And when you see that coming, all of those things just kind of tell the complete story of the rut. Everybody wants the bugle shot, and most people get it in a lot of the areas where we photograph elk. But also look for those other little subtle interactions and just different behaviors that happen with the rest of the herd, not just with the bulls. The
Yeah.
parallel walk. Sorry, same thing.
No.
It's all coming back.
Yeah, I could just talk and talk about elk. Mark, just to add on to yours a little bit, and then I'll throw mine out there. The other thing I like about getting out super early, and I'm actually surprised Ron didn't jump on this one, is you get those chances for silhouettes, and then you still get an opportunity to do some video potentially before the light is getting good enough to take stills. So it's a good opportunity to try to do that, and or what I've been trying to do lately with that time is to try to get some motion blur type shots.
Motion blur,
So,
yes.
yeah. So you can keep your shutter speed down slow enough and your ISO and aperture where you want them to try to get some of those motion blur shots as the elk are moving and running and stuff. But, for me, I guess my first tip and the most important one for me over the years has been to pay attention to everything that's going on around you when you're photographing elk. Mark alluded to this. It's very dynamic. The elk are moving constantly. There's bulls, raghorns coming in from different directions potentially to come and try to steal the cows from the bull. And depending on where you're at, you can get yourself in a little bit of a pickle sometimes. And not that I've ever had it. Well, that's not fair. I have absolutely had elk charge me. That happens. I think it's happened to probably everyone on this podcast. No? Okay, liars. But that's something you need to be paying attention to. I know people have been gored and people that are being really dumb and getting way too close and doing things that they shouldn't be doing. There's been people gored and actually killed by elk, but in general, I don't think elk want to charge and gore you. I think it's just people pushing the limits too much, but they will charge you. And a few years ago in Rocky, there was a bull that charged me 3 times in the week period that I was there. And the park ended up putting him down because he actually charged horses and charged other people. And sometimes these bulls just get real aggressive. They charged a horse and gored the horse and knocked the lady that was riding the horse off the horse and hurt her, didn't kill her, thank goodness. But anyways, they ended up having to put that bull down because he was just causing too much chaos and he was just too aggressive and too ornery. But the point is, just pay attention to what's going on around you. Don't live in your viewfinder when you're photographing elk for a lot of reasons. One is for safety, but two is to, like Ron alluded to, pay attention to all the things that are going on around you. There's a lot of rut activity that's fun to catch other than just the bulls bugling or the bulls fighting or the bulls chasing a cow or something. So
But it brings up an interesting point, Jason. Canadian people are some of the most polite, nicest people you'll ever meet in your life. Canadian elk, not so much. It's a little bit different. You've got,
what's up with that?
Americans can be rude and obnoxious, but our elk tend to be fairly well behaved. But it's a different breed up there in the north. And I know Mark's got some stories, and I know I've heard some stories. Now, whether he'll tell them today or not, I don't know. But those elk up there, even the cows, they're a little bit more aggressive, or tend to be.
Yeah, the cows, and it's something else about anywhere you. I'm just gonna be like a politician and ignore the the comment.
Oh,
about Canadians being nice.
All right, some of us, yeah.
Wow.
Well, no, I'm going to stand by that for the most part, but it's not 100%. That's true, right? Yeah, no, people are people, but yeah, the elk, you have to watch them. But something when you anywhere in elk country venturing in to have bear spray as a line of defense, if hopefully the situation never occurs for you, or but having bear spray is important for all the bears that are in elk country, because there can be situations where an elk, let's say 2 bull elk fight and one succumbs, and that happens. If some of our most magnificent bulls over the years have died during the rut, well, scavengers and predators find that carcass, and bears can take over a carcass, and we can wander through that same hareming area and not know, right, that's there. So it's just always be cautious, be watchful, carry bear spray, just for that added security. Have it accessible, know how to use it, but yes, the cows, you do have to watch the cows too. Any animal that there's a personal space. And, if people photograph elk all over the country, where elk roam, but if it happens to be in a national park, there are rules for distance. And I know in Canada it's 25 meters, but, honestly, rarely are we that. It's with telephoto lenses, it's not required. And because of the energy of the situation, it's best not to be close. And you can also collect great images of the behavior in action from a distance too. I mean, the landscapes, all of that can come together. There was one situation last fall. There was a big harem, big 20 some cows and a bull, but there were a bunch of satellite bulls, and there was a scene where 4 of them were off probably 100 yards from where I was, ignoring the rutting behavior, but sparring themselves. And 2 of the bulls were sparring and then 2 were standing, but it was just a beautiful Rocky Mountain scene that, didn't require any proximity whatsoever to collect an image that speaks to elk country. And, sometimes it's nice to have the elk taking up a lot of the frame with a mountain landscape, but for variety of storytelling, the small end frame elk with grand landscape also has a different effect, and that'll be on the YouTube here too. but it's you can see how much attention an animal pays to you at a greater distance. So, hypothetically, if we're 100 yards away, is the animal staring at us? If we're 60 yards away, how much attention is the animal paying? That's one indicator to watch for. And this is again, when we're on foot, and it's something, I'll reiterate it once more: don't do it. Don't learn it on your own. With these big animals, moose the same way. It's really important to be able to learn their behavior and watch for signs. And basically, if a bull elk spends a lot of time staring, I mean, it's if it was staring at me, then it would be like I'm taking up too much of that bull's attention, irrelevant of the distance. Obviously, it's not necessarily I'm close. It can just happen. So backing off at a walk, facing the animal, so you can watch them, diffuses most situations quickly, because as soon as they see that space increasing 10 yards, 20 yards, they're like, okay, that's distractions leaving, enough so they can go back to their business. And I only say it too because, I mean, it should be for any animal, but with big animals that are fast, much faster than us, and can be dangerous to be aware of. And that being said too, I don't walk right out into the middle of a clearing to join animals, even at yardage or meters that's beyond recommendation. Like even at 40 or 50 yards, if there aren't trees or cover around, it's not sensible to be out near the animals if that's the case. Sometimes with trees and forests, by getting out of sight, it also diffuses a situation with the animal too. So
I mean, it kind of depends on what kind of experience you want to have, though.
I'm trying to be politically correct here.
I know, I'm teasing. I had an experience when I was a rookie, for sure, that scared me, quite honestly, and I think I was pretty lucky the way it turned out. So I think that's sage advice for sure.
Well, it's just like driving, right? We all, we get in a car, we have our driver's license. There's the engine, we can rev it, we can go fast, and then there's a close call, or heaven forbid, an accident. And, I've had that, on my motorcycle, that changes one's mindset. So having it's not, never to be encouraged to have a close call, but if it happens with the elk, it's a wake up, right?
Yeah,
to
sure.
be aware of their agility, and we are not fast beings. We have to be pragmatic and smart, the best we can. But
you're talking about you and Ron, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I think there was something Ron a while ago, but telling me how much faster than me he would be. But
maybe one day long ago, but I've seen you
sprinter.
take off walking.
I like to walk quickly. Yeah. So on a non-aggression standpoint, another thing to watch for that's super cool. I mean, bugling, like Ron said, everybody loves those images across the board. All kinds of potential compositions there, from close-ups to a bull elk bugling on a ridge in a landscape, or at the river's edge, or who knows where, dramatic light by a cow. But another image that can, to the untrained eye, can look like bugling, but it's not, is lip curling or fleming. And it's something I get excited about, because they've always sold really well. And it's not just that reasoning that I like it, but it's in the essence of these beasts, these creatures, when they tip their head back and show their big neck, because it's the middle of the rut, and their antlers are tipped. So for moose and elk in this case, it's very dramatic for an image behavior, but you can predict it. And it's, sometimes if people are with me, what happens is a female. It doesn't have to be a female in heat. But if a female near the bull urinates, the bull will, assuming he picks up on it, go over behind her, and she may walk off. That's still okay. That still happened. And he'll put his head down. As soon as he puts his head down where she urinated, he will 99% of the time lip curl. So that's when you get ready, right? And I remember talking about this on the podcast years ago, in the sense that you don't just get ready for the photo opportunity, and it will last 20 seconds. You've got time. They'll tip their head one way, the other way. They hold on to it as they inhale air for this testing of whether she's in heat or not with the Jacobson's organ in their upper oral region. But when they put their head down, not only do you have the opportunity to get your camera ready, but study the background and the scene. And it's like you have a couple of seconds to shift left or right to clean up the background or to change it in a way that makes the composition better for where the animal is. Let's say it's the bull is quartering away and puts its head down. And this happens. It's inevitable. Every year, the lip curl facing away and no shot because it's just over their back. But if it's an angle and in a landscape that's safe enough to shift that 10 yards to change to get more head on, when they're tasting the urine, you have that short window of time. So be aware of that. And then when they bring their head up, the other thing I prefer to do, again, assuming it's a safe scenario, is get a little lower. And so I'm lower than the animal's head for the angle of the image. It just increases the magnificence of the subject too. But lip curling is predictable with a keen eye and just watching for when a cow urinates. And then if you may get more options or more opportunities than one, if that bull, the herd bull, lip curls on the cow and then follows her, there may be another really nice satellite around, and he's very likely to come in on the same trail and do the same thing. So keep that in your periphery as well, because that could give you another opportunity to get more or a different animal or even improve on the angle that you had the first time.
That's a bonus tip, boys and girls, because all ungulates will do that. And it's just as predictable with a bighorn sheep as it is with an elk or a deer.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. You can, most of the times when we're out together, somebody's calling it, right? It's gonna lip curl. It's gonna lip curl. And like you said, 9 times out of 10, you're right. You know, you can predict it pretty readily. But
I know my kid thought I was genius for a couple of years.
I know, it's always fun to let him
and
think
then
that you're like psychic.
Yeah. So going back to the landscape shots too, Mark, I want to go back and touch on a pro tip that's it's across the board, because when you're photographing these large animals, a lot of times we do have longer glass on, and one of the reasons that I like to use a zoom is it just frees up your composition. Also, using a zoom and going out to the long end of it, another technique, and I will admit that I stole this from Drew Hamilton. I had him on the podcast a long time ago talking about polar bears and having a 600 millimeter lens on and the bear being too close to fit in the lens. And the tip here is stitching. So set one button to lock focus. Focus on your bull. Get your shot of the bull bugling, and then get 5 or 6 overlapping vertical shots to the right or left, depending on which way you're facing. And then when you get back and come into your edit, it's in Lightroom. You just go to the photo menu in the develop module, select photo merge, select panoramic, and boom, it will do a fantastic job of putting those images together. And now you just made a panoramic that's going to be 2 gigabyte file that you could literally put on a billboard without having to enhance it at all. And you've got a lot wider angle image that's compressed, so the mountains stay big and impressive. You've got the animals there in the landscape. I was photographing with Jason and Carla Cox in Colorado, and this bull was on this ridge. Well, the sun started coming up behind us, and just the ridge top was just this kind of flaming pink. The bull was still in shadow a little bit, but that ridge line was really impressive. The color was just beautiful. And so I set up and just, you want to overlap each shot just a little bit, about maybe 20% of the frame, 15% of the frame, just overlap them. And then if you're handheld, you really have to focus on making sure that you kind of stay level all the way across. Otherwise, your images are going to be shifted as you put them together. So try to stay as flat as you can. Keep the focus on your subjects and just, 6 or 7 slices. And then you can put them together very easily in Lightroom. It does the work for you. But if
That's a
you
good tip, Ron.
don't have a wide angle, that's a good way to get it.
Yeah. If you have a tripod, it's a little easier. I just did this recently on some landscape photos, believe it or not, in Arches, and did a wide angle shot, if you will, with my 400 millimeter lens by stitching some, I think it was 6 panels together of a bunch of arches that were together. And I was really impressed with, like you said, that compression just is a completely different look. And so it's kind of fun to play with that because you get a different look than you would with a wide angle lens on that same photo. So yeah, something for all of us to think about when you have the time and in the moment. And the example Drew used was pretty cool too. I think it was a polar bear on a whale carcass, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he ended up to be a really cool photo too. So yeah, I think I forget about that every now and then I remember. But if you're on a tripod, you can really make sure you're level and, swinging it through and stitching. It's a lot easier, but you can do it manually too, for sure. Handheld for sure.
I was in Grand Teton National Park with Bo Day, and I was standing there and I was just kind of rotating at the hips. He's like, "What are you doing?" I said, this is my landscape lens.
Nice.
Mark got excited when I said I was rotating at the hips. He's seen it in action, in person.
Yeah, something about a cabin or something. I don't know.
No. It's his happy pose. It's his happy in wilderness pose.
Well, he's got to have
right now. You get to see it.
He's got the hiking sticks, though. He's got to have the hiking sticks
in the mountains.
Pop it.
It's chill. It's relaxing.
Pop it.
Fantastic.
Mark,
do we have time for another one or 113? Should I?
We got time for a story. You said you had a story to cap it off, but Jason, did you have anything else?
I'll just to add to Mark's comments about walking out in the middle. That is a kind of a fun story. I think we talked about it way long ago, but
it's still one of my favorites. Let's hear it
that
again.
was one of the scariest experiences I've ever had in the wild. And it was Harlan and I. We were out in the middle of a meadow and photographing elk, and just timing. We were one bull with a group of cows, and 5 minutes, and not a tree in sight, in the middle of the meadow. And 5 minutes later, there were 6 herd bulls breaking up the cows and fighting and running. Total chaos broke loose. And we were literally in the middle of it. And there was literally nothing we could do except for stand there and hope that the bulls would see us and pay attention. And it was incredible. We had bulls running by us very, very close. It was an adrenaline rush for sure. Not one I'm looking to have again, trust me. But I'll tell you one thing that impressed me was how incredibly aware those animals are, even in the middle of those heated battles and stuff. They could have very easily ran us over, and they never did. It reminds me of being out photographing horses too, right? You kind of pay attention to. A lot of times those horses will come running right by you, not trying to intimidate you or anything, but just chasing other horses or whatever. And it's incredible how aware they are. They will miss you. I mean, they're not looking to run you over. But, accidents happen too, right? So you get an ornery bull, you get a bull that thinks that you're a threat for some reason for a split second, whatever. All it took was 1 split second, and we could have been in real trouble. But as incredible as that experience was, I'm not looking to have it again. So yeah, it's real. You live and learn sometimes, fortunately. but yeah, be careful. Don't go walking out in the middle of the meadow if you can avoid it. Always try to have something around to get behind or to avoid any kind of a contact. But sorry, Ron, you have a story, or did Mark have another story? I think.
Yeah, I think Mark said he had the capstone story.
Coup de grace. Finish this off, buddy.
I have been looking this whole time, because we sprung this and decided to do it tonight. JG will do his wizardry and get the name into the episode who sent it in. I don't have it at my fingertips, or we'll just edit this part out and I will say it. But I really, really want to make sure credit is given. If for some reason we don't get it on this one, we'll have it for the next podcast that we record, and we'll give our gratitude for the person who sent in the DM for this fantastic idea. And it's spinning off in a sense too that we're excited about doing a handful of these episodes to cover the species that we have spent years working with and share stories and insights with other ones coming up too. So hopefully that's something you'll look forward to hearing about. On the elk tip, photography tip part of it, I have one really quick one I can spin into about, again, that head tip back pose, and bulls will look exceptionally regal when they go around the outside of a harem if there's a cow they're bringing back to the harem. And so they'll go beyond the cow, and at that point they'll often tip their head back to encourage her to go back to the group and lift their front hooves up. And it's an incredible pose. If the positioning from the photographer's perspective lines up, it can be great potential. So watching a bull leave the harem to go around the outside of a female to bring her back in, and when he circles around the outside is the time to be ready for that. Sometimes they'll run them in head low, but other times they'll bring their head up, and it's really dramatic image opportunity then as well. I believe I told the story before about the blue foggy morning shot on the show, right?
Not this show.
Not this show.
No,
and it's been a while.
We need it for this show.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
Because everybody knows already that is my favorite Mark Raycroft elk shot.
Well, I'm touched. I'm honored and flattered and thank you.
Don't be. I'm easily impressed.
Well, you did say mine. It's not a favorite.
Wow.
It's the favorite one of mine. So ranking
kidding.
It could be the 75th one down. That's cool. No worries. And that was a fun sale too on what it took to sell that image. That's another little sidebar. But this, I should have had it behind me tonight, but it's sometimes on the wall behind me. This is the same bull that the story is about in the background. And he's the one I alluded to earlier that is my favorite of all the years. And there have been, as all photographers who, we're all enthralled with wildlife. And if we do this for years, you get to know individuals in the places that you revisit and travel to, and you get to know their personalities, although beware, they can change from year to year. You haven't seen them in a while, and they may not be as tolerant as they might have been in the past, etc. But to be able to see an animal, and as it matures and grows and all that's a really special opportunity. This picture behind me was, again, Ron pointed it out to me. There's a variety of lenses that can work well with elk, but a zoom is my favorite because it gives the opportunity to do compositional variance without moving as much physically, which is sometimes important. Sometimes it's critical not to move too much. It depends on the situation. This bull behind was probably the most magnificent bull that I've ever photographed over the close to 30 years now. Or maybe it is 30. That's scary. In our mind's eye, we still feel like kids, right? We're all still, I'm I can take it on the same, everything's ready to go. The excitement and perspectives and we don't, thankfully, our psyche doesn't age, right? This bull was very special, and this was a Zoom that I had at that time. It was quite a few years ago, so it was an 80-400, and I was able to zoom out to 80 to get that forest composition there. But quickly to wrap up, sorry, I get off topic because elk are fun, and there's so many stories over the years that just pop into mind, as Ron said earlier with the paralleling, right? That's something too on Elk Biology Pro Tips Part 2 podcast coming soon, possibly to a podcast near you. The story, so this bluish elk image that really moved me was a culmination of a morning hike. And sometimes I'm alone or with a couple of guests. This was before guests, and I was with, I think 3 other good friends that morning, and we hiked probably a mile to get to where we knew this harem was, and because they'd been there for days in the area. Now they can move, and they do even through the day. They can cover quite a bit of ground, but we also heard the bull bugling. That's one of the nice things about elk, right? You can hear where the activity is and decide how to proceed at that point. But it was early morning, really cold, a few degrees or more below freezing, and frost on everything. And the light was blue, this pre-sunrise, because it was behind the mountains too, as well. So cold, bluish light, frost everywhere, even on the bull's antlers. And that speaks to the environment they're into in a photograph. I love that opportunity to see frosted antlers. And we hiked in. I don't know what part of this story to tell. So there was had a small harem of cows, peak of the rut, and we took some images in blue light. And we weren't all together. The 4 of us were spread out here and there a little bit. I think it was one of the. It happens kind of fast these mornings, and it was years ago. But it was magnificent light. And we took some images with the cows, and then satellite came in, and he ran at the satellite, and it separated him from the cows, and we also backed up and gave them space at this point, and the cows went over this hill, and we were near a river in this case, but we hadn't become within sight of the river. So whether it was 20 yards or 150 yards, weren't entirely sure. Weren't thinking about it. We were so focused on the elk and the mist and the situation, which was super photogenic. The cows all went over this little sand ridge while the bull chased the other satellite off. And then he came back, and of course we're photographing the bull, and he's now looking where the cows had gone. And he went over the ridge, and it was probably only, 20 feet high, but out of sight at that point. And so it was a lot of, we were at that point standing together, and it was a celebration, great images of that, but it just kind of dawned on us that they could be in the river of that. And it's just another opportunity, right? And so we obviously didn't follow exactly where he went over, because you can't see where he'd gone, how far he was. Don't want to walk over the top and have him right there. So we were down probably 60 yards further, and we went over this little ridge, and it happened so quickly. The cows had already swam the river, and he was just wading in. And when we went over the top, he looked back, and I was able to take this vertical image, and I took it purposefully vertical at first because you could just see the evergreen forest on the far bank ghosted in the fog. I wanted to get the verticalness of the trees and the fog with the bull in the river. And then I did some of him swimming in the river as he went away. But it was that one picture that culminated the morning. That would never have happened if it hadn't dawned on us that, have a look over the ridge. That was the highlight image. And just to conclude the story, still exciting to this day. To conclude the story, I thought it was fantastic with the blue color, and send it out specifically. Often to my editors, I'll send them an updated submission. Just having finished elk edits last week, I send 50 of my favorite elk to my editors that I work closely with and say, here's the new stuff, and hopefully you like it. Sometimes if there's a really special image, I'll just send it by itself, hoping to get their attention to it. And I did that with this one, and nice comments back, but no request for high res. And so a year later, I did it again, and I changed the blue in Photoshop and made it more Cibachrome, more black and white, and just gray blue. No, sorry, gray, frosty, but not blue at all. And I sent it to one of my editors, and then it was like right away, he wanted the high res, and they ran with it. But it's, and that's rare. I don't usually, it's rare that I change color on an image, but that one, it was so blue that it must have been off-putting for some, not to me. So it's just that shift to make it more black and white that made it cooler in a cold sense, I guess, for that appeal.
Yeah, it's interesting, Mark. I don't know what your experience has been, but I've actually heard people say to me, get rid of the blues, no blues, get the blues out of there, blah, blah, blah. And so it's kind of funny because sometimes I know you're a lot the same way I am. I really try to capture the moment and what it looked like and what it felt like to me. And we all have liberty, like we've talked with editing, but I try to keep it fairly true to what we experience and a lot. And that blue hour is a real thing, right? I mean, that's how it was, I'm sure, for you in that moment. So it's odd to me though that it seems like editors maybe in general don't want the blues. I don't know what it is about that. I don't know what it is about, periodicals, magazines, print, whatever. Mm-hmm. But has that been your experience other than just that image?
Well, in that particular request, it certainly fit. And, you could be right. That could be a great editorial tip because it's rare. I've had other editors use quite a few of that sequence from that morning as blue.
Oh, have they? Okay.
Yeah, but not on a cover.
Interesting.
So that was it could have been that. It's from my again, that makes sense. Maybe something about print, but they reproduced fine as blues. Yeah. They're a little darker in the sense that because it's that time of day, that's the moodiness of the image. I mean, it's accurate to be darker. But I know some editors won't touch silhouettes, and others do. Mm-hmm. And you just get to know familiarity. If there's a publication that you aspire to work with, you study it, and see what kind of compositions and colors and lights they like for covers or spreads and honestly, I mean, unless somebody's writing a feature, it's usually the best things to target for your style of photography for editorial or covers and spreads, because that's what limited budgets now seem to, across, not all, but a lot of them, that's where they still have some budget for art, for openers or cover. And then for spreads, it's tricky. For horizontals, I mean, sometimes it just naturally happens, but we have to be purposeful for spreads to create enough space between the subject and the middle of the image that, that there's no point in an animal's nose going into this fold in the magazine. So to have enough space there for horizontals, something I really focus on when creating a composition in the field.
Right. I was just curious.
But you could be right. The blues.
I'm not saying I've heard that. I don't know. I might be interesting to have a conversation with.
They've told you more than they've told me.
Well, this didn't come from any editors, honestly. This came from other photographers. So
sure. Well,
just
it could be.
But yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm
sure there's something to it. But.
Blue was. Yeah. It very likely is. It's not going to compete with a dramatic mountain scene and gorgeous morning light.
Right.
I mean, that's always going to be a win for the storytelling for where elk live. It's when there's enough material required that they need some moodiness, unless there's something specific, you know. If I was able to tell this story for Outdoor Photographer magazine, if you're out there, you know, maybe they'd want the images to support the story.
Hint, hint.
Yeah.
Just saying.
That's cool. That's a cool story. It's a good reminder too to not stop. Right when you think it's over, it may not be over. So I don't know how many times that's happened to me, where you know think it's over for the morning. And one more quick story. Sorry, photographing the herd elk. Whole harem sits down. Bed bull or the bull beds as well. It's quiet. Waiting 10 minutes, getting ready to leave. Start to walk away, and here comes a raghorn, just tongue out, ripping off squealy bugles, comes barreling right into the middle of the herd of cows and blows them up. And that bull harassing that little raghorn, it turned into one of the coolest, photo opportunities I've had. And but yeah, I didn't even see it coming. If we'd have left 5 minutes earlier, we'd have totally missed it. So you just never know what's going to happen in the elk woods. But
Yeah, that's the wildlife photography.
it's true with
People
anything.
listening,
You're right.
it's
Right.
wildlife. We don't know. They can look totally chill, sleeping. And there was my last day. We can go on. We have to split this into two parts. My last day with this bull before he died. I didn't find him on the last trip. I was able to photograph him. That was 5 years ago. I couldn't find him for a few days and focused on other elk, and then found him and spent two entire days with him, the whole day. And because it was overcast, and where he was, it was very secluded, and it was just myself, my wonderful friend and photographer Eric Roof, and my biologist friend Luke Vandervenen, who has traveled with me on a handful of trips, and call him Lucky Luke because everything turns out when he's there. And Luke was great because he wasn't photographing as much. He had a camera and a zoom lens, but we didn't. The first day we didn't plan to stay all day with the harem, but Luke went and got supplies for us midday. So it's always nice when somebody does that too. So
Yeah.
we're often prepared, but in this case, it wasn't. But wonderful memories. Those 2 days, so much material as kind of the swan song of the last bit before he was killed in the rut.
Yeah, I'm afraid we could do an 8-hour podcast on elk. Just elk stories, right? I mean, yeah.
Mark hasn't found it yet, but whoever's idea this was, it was a good one.
Yeah. It's a really good one.
It will be on the show notes. It will be the person's Instagram will be on YouTube when we refer to them. JG will do his expert editing and get that there. So yeah, gratitude will be shared. But thank you. We love all the engagement. And Dave, if you're listening, you know which Dave you are. When I was talking about I don't run from wildlife, it does happen once in a while. I can hear you laughing. When I started that. Good times, for sure. Well, again, as Ron said, thank you for the idea, and we always appreciate the interaction and the support of the show. If you're thinking about camera gear or anything to do with photography, please always keep Pictureline in mind, and Colin Bigelow is our contact there. Contact him. You can find him on Instagram as well, but contact him for a quote because they have exceptional customer service. The one thing that we do ask our audience, our supporters, if you do source materials through Pictureline, please let them know that you're coming from our podcast, because at this point in time, we don't have a code or a link set up. And that way they know that it's through the support of the show that they're getting the business, which helps us with our wonderful, wonderful relationship with Pictureline. So that, and you also, I know I joke about this too, you'll get a sticker or two from Beyond the Wild. And I joke about this too. Someday there'll be a merch site. So thank you for tuning in for another episode. and it's a fun one. I love storytelling and reminiscing, and look forward to doing more of these species ones in the near future with my co-hosts. It's always fun to see you, Ron and Jason, and to hear your perspectives. And I learn every episode with you guys too. Enjoy spring, everybody. Take care. Looking forward to seeing your images on social media. And that's a wrap for another episode of Beyond the Wild podcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Pictureline.com, your online source for everything photography, and Canon USA.